You may have a friend, someone who used to be in your daily life, someone you talked to every day, and then you noticed a week had gone by, a month, 6 months, a year, and communication had stopped. And there hadn't been a fight. There just was no more. Hi, I'm Ann Johnson. You all ready to chat? This is a particular sad one because nobody talks about this type of loss. It's not a breakup. It's not a death. There's no casserole from the neighbor and a text telling you they're sorry for your loss. It just happens. A friendship that's ended quietly without anyone deciding it should. That's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I think a lot of us, including me, are carrying this low hum of guilt over this loss. Like we failed somehow, or they failed us. And I don't think either one is right. Here's the thing about friendship in your 20s and 30s. It's artificially easy. You're surrounded by people in the dorm room, in your apartment building, at work. There's no effort involved in making a friend or keeping one. You just show up in the same place, and it happens. Midlife strips all of that away. Suddenly, you've got kids, teenagers or adult, aging parent, demanding career because you're higher up the ranks now. This combination doesn't leave much room for casual friendships. Because life is actively narrowing, we don't have time for casual connection. The older we get, the more intentional the friendship is, and some friendships just cannot survive the transition from accidental to intentional. And that's not failure. That's just developmental math. So let's talk about how this happens in specific instances, because I think naming it helps. One reason a friendship ends is because it was always about context, not about each other. I had a friendship in my life that I very much valued. And I was introduced to her by her mother-in-law, who I worked with. And Carla had a son who was a year younger than my grandson. And if you haven't seen past videos, I raised my grandson. So we hung out together. We took them to different activities. They ended up going to the same high school. And even though they were a year apart, they were both interested in music. And it was an arts high school. So my grandson majored in piano and her son did violin. So they went all through high school and we still chummed around together. And then they graduated. One went to one college and one went to the other college. And then I noticed the phone calls weren't there anymore. I would call once in a while to see how she was doing and how her son was doing. She would call once in a while to see how I was doing and how Aiden was doing. But they became far and infrequent. The friendship didn't have much to stand on. Anyone else have friendships like that? Friendships through your kids that now you've drifted apart? It's okay. I think a lot of friendships are like that, not just kids, but work friends. I mean, you probably have work friends that you were pretty tight with while you were working together, and then you just drifted apart afterwards. When the context dissolves, so does the glue. And that's not a character flaw in either person. It's just a truth about what the friendship was. Sometimes a friendship just grows in different directions. And this one is quieter and hard to say out loud. I mean, sometimes friendships midlife because the people just aren't the same anymore. Your values shift. Your sense of humor changes. The things you want to talk about for 3 hours, the other person doesn't want to talk about for 3 hours anymore. Or maybe you don't want to talk about for 3 hours anymore. And there's this pressure to keep up and continue to perform the friendship. It could be because of loyalty. You've always been friends. So you both show up as if it's an appointment. I mean, after all, you've known each other since forever. But at some point, you kind of have to ask yourself, is this really good for me? Or are we just honoring the memory of a past good friendship? Growing apart is not a betrayal. It's a development. It's just evidence that both of you are changing. And isn't that what we're supposed to do? Another reason a friendship ends is because you're constantly chasing them. I had a friend that I would do the calling. I would constantly call. And I don't mean daily or weekly. I mean, she moved out of town and I would make it a point to call her up every couple months. For an embarrassingly long time, I kept that up. She never called me. And when I thought about that, it was kind of hurtful to me that she wasn't doing anything to maintain our friendship. So, not out of vindictiveness, but more or less like an experiment, I stopped calling. She didn't call me. This kind of friendship is particularly hard because it doesn't look broken from the outside. I mean, when we talked like we had just been together. We talked about old times. We talked about what we were doing now. It felt real. But underneath it, there was an imbalance that midlife just made real. Letting go of an unequal friendship is not wrong. It's not bad. Don't feel guilty. It's just accurate accounting. It's a lot healthier. Then there's the friend who you've been friends with for years who suddenly stops answering your calls or texts. That one is particularly hurtful. I had a friend. I would still consider her a friend. I don't know why. I just would. But she moved to another state. And we still called each other weekly and text each other every other day. We still had a relationship. But I noticed that the other friends in my area who she moved away from, she was cutting them off one by one. So I kind of wondered when it was going to be my turn. Well, one day I sent her a text, no answer, no reply. And I did this goingly for, I don't know, a couple weeks. And then Ann got the hint. She wouldn't talk to me anymore. There was nothing. It just stopped. And I looked at it this way. She had moved on to her new life in her new state, and there just wasn't room for myself or any of her other friends in our area anymore. And once I came to that realization, I was okay with it because I knew wherever she was and whatever she was doing, she was probably pretty happy. And that made me feel good. But here's what I have to make peace with. There's probably a version to this story where I'm the one who didn't return the call or text. Anyone else do that? I know there are people I drifted from who I wasn't upset with. I just changed. And just like my friend in another state, I didn't have room for them in my life anymore. Friendships contain all of these things. Sometimes you're the one who drifts away, and sometimes your friend drifts away. I called this chat, and it's okay. And I want to be really careful what I mean by that. I'm not saying it didn't hurt to lose a friend. Some friends are meant to be chapters in a book, your book of life. And chapters end, and that's okay. You go on to the next chapter. And I really think for me that letting go of these friends and getting over my guilt helped me free up space. It gave me more room in my emotional calendar for my intentional friends. Friends who fit me for where I am today. You know those friendships. The one that get better every day and aren't just familiar. Not just we've always been friends. They're more than that. They're people you can grow with. If there's a friendship you have in your life that's kind of in that in-between gap, you need to ask yourself, do I just want to close it or do I just want it to fade away? Both of these are real answers, but be honest with yourself. Don't spend 2 more years maintaining something that you gave up on years ago just because you think you're supposed to. If the friend is someone you deeply care about, fight for it. Reach out and say, let's get together. And I don't mean a vague let's get together. I mean, hey, what are you doing Friday for lunch? Hey, do you want to go for a walk tomorrow afternoon? And let them know how valuable they are to you. We don't do that enough, don't you think? Let people know how valuable they are to us, how important they are. So if you have a friend that you don't want to leave behind, you don't want them to leave you behind, make that attempt. If you're ready to let it close, you're allowed to do it quietly. You don't need a conversation. You don't need an announcement. But if you're carrying guilt about it, there's one thing that has helped me, and that is naming it to myself, not to the friend. Say out loud to yourself, that friendship was good. It mattered, but it's over with. It's a small thing to do for yourself, but saying it out loud really helps. You're allowed to miss someone you've outgrown. You're allowed to feel loss. without thinking you did something wrong. You're allowed to grieve a friendship without feeling you need to fix it. Midlife friendships are hard. The ones that survive are the ones that do because you did it on purpose. These friendships feel better than any of the other ones because they're not done because of proximity or familiarity. You purposefully chose this friend, and they purposely chose you. Maybe the question is, what am I building now that I have space for intentional friends? Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for the chat.